Welcome back to the Island of the Arts. I'm Oliver Luke Delory, and in this episode we'll learn how artists make creative decisions. Let's go.
There's a light in the dark, shining bright on the Isle of the Arts. An open mind, an open heart, let love rule on the Isle of the Arts. Tap into your creative spark, express yourself on the Isle of the Arts. Laugh and play, that's a start. Welcome to the Island of the Arts.
I've been creating all my life. You know, growing up in a small town from Ukrainian and Polish background, you learn to embroider and knit and sew and cook and garden and, you know, all of the above. I just didn't know how much I would love clay until I tried it.
And the first thing I do is I look around and see what is it available to me that I don't have to go and destroy the planet. I don't have to cut, like coming here, a good example. When we first came, lived in Ottawa so many years, and I first came out here, I went down to the beach and I see all this driftwood just laying there. And I'm thinking, wow, all I have to do is carry this to my studio, and I'm not cutting down a tree. And I work in series, you know, so I made a couple hundred sculptures out of driftwood because it was there for me and it was available, and I didn't have to destroy the forest. It was already, you know, and the same with a lot of the stone I've used. They come from different they're buildings that were torn down. So I look around, whatever is available, I will use it. And right now my bonsai plants is the little trees that I rescue. I call them rescue. Some people rescue animals. Some people, you know, I rescue plants. And because it's available, it's there. I look around, I see this little plant that needs a little adoption. And it's also a message there for people who see what I'm doing. They see what can happen. You can get a little tree that was deprived and you can nurture it, and that can live for, you know, some of my plants here, you know, they're 30, 40 years old that I've nurtured, you know.
Leather is the smell, it's the feel, it's the subtleness, it's the feel for me. And it reminds a lot of people of times that they experienced leather. You know, for me, when I go to a shoemaker, it's the same kind of smell, you know, and what I hear people when they walk by my booth or when they see me at a show and they say, oh, I just love the leather smell. I just love the smell of leather. It's just something really ingrained in our bodies, right? From many, many thousands of years ago, I think. It's because of the material, and it just triggers something in us. And I still feel that. And I love it. It's really unique.
Most of my silversmithing experience actually came from teaching myself. I'm very patient. I'm willing to put in the hard work. I put in hours of reading, and there weren't a lot of programs or YouTube videos about it when I first started. And so there was magazines that I would buy, or books. I think I bought every book that I could get my hands on. And so I taught myself a lot of it. And part of that too was that people began expecting that I would know all the answers because I had read so much, which is really a trick of mine. So to appear more confident than I perhaps am sometimes. So instead of not having the answer, I would spend more time reading.
I had a moose in the Yukon I made, and then when we moved, it wouldn't fit in our storage trailer, so I had to leave it. So we came down here, I made another one right away, and just for us, we hung it up in here. In our first studio tour, it sold. I was like, oh. So my idea is when I like something and I'm sad that it goes, now I'm making 2 or more. So now I've got 2. I'm getting out of the paper mache business though. So I'm just gonna concentrate on outdoor art, so metal. So I've made the horses and the elk. So far, I've sold one horse. The situation that a lot of people have, their houses have art. They have their own art, they have other artists' art in their house, and they have no more room, but what about the outside? So we're just gonna probably concentrate, the bigger pieces are just outdoor art, so I call it the art.
I'd love to talk about the tricks of the trade, meaning the work itself and ways that you can bring the viewer into engaging with your pieces. And that's really important, because unless you can do that, you know, it's like the tree that falls in the forest, you know, that sound. I mean, unless you have a viewer in front of that work, you know, being in the studio is not gonna help it, you know, do what it's supposed to be doing. And so, for me, that was probably another reason for going outwardly, three-dimensionally. There's always a kinetic or a humorous or an engaging component to the work, so that I can draw the viewer into the work, and then, pow, maybe they'll get the essence of the work, maybe. But until you get them in front of your work, how are you ever going to dispatch that, or the contemplative moments that they need to? Can they relate to what I'm saying, or do they disagree? Disagree is good too, you know. At least it's an engaging moment. So, you know, I'll go to bizarre, you know, it's becoming more and more bizarre, some of the things that I try to do to try to engage the viewers. And now I'm experimenting with installation pieces that you can walk through. And look, here's an example of one of the pieces here. And I've got it set up outside for you to look at, but it has headphones. You can put on the headphones and walk through the different pedestals. And it's a futuristic moment where I almost got run over by a car. I stopped to look at the cows in the field, and they were all facing the same direction. And I had my camera taking pictures. Beyond the cows were these lollipop trees and another system I saw. And then, okay, I'm done, and I turn around to go onto the highway. For heaven's sake, it was a rise, and there comes this little car, fast as can be. I'm sure that person didn't see me, I didn't see them. But thank God our timing was such where we didn't hit. But boy, I bet I scared that person, and I took a moment to recover. And I stood there, and I look across the road, and I see another system, and guess what it is? It's genetically altered corn. Boom, 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 boom. There must have been about 100 rows of different kinds of corn with little signs, you know, little signs where it was telling us what kind of corn was there, what kind of genetic alterations were done with it, right down the whole way. And okay, fine, I get into my car, and the whole moment was so crazy emotional that I just left it alone for a little bit, but it pondered and pondered. And slowly but surely, I got so obsessed about everything was in such a fast mode. Everyone was that guy was in girl, I don't know, such a hurry to get from one place to another. I was in a hurry to cross well, I wasn't, thank God. The genetically altered corn, then the system of the lollipop trees, that was a farmer who obviously wanted to make sure, you know, every year he planted another set of trees, you know, poof, 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 all the way out. And nothing natural about it, by the way. It looked a little ridiculous. And the cows, I never did figure out why all the cows were in the same direction. Later on, someone told me that they were probably facing into the sun, is basically all it was. But anyway, I go home with all these thoughts of, holy mackerel, I've got to capture this future moment. And I actually took everything and created my own set of circumstances with the signs, the cows, the lollipop trees, the corn that I saw, and I sort of created my own genetically altered corn. Like if you look closely, what would the corn of the future be like? Well, it's got silver, gold, and copper cobs in it, so that we grow our own minerals. And then I made a cow that has 10 udders. The ultimate cow, I just made it out of epoxy clay. And not only that, I think it's going to be a tailless cow, milkable, and smaller, so it's more maneuverable, and white, so they can keep it clean. And the lollipop tree, well, you know, the very famous ginkgo tree. The ginkgo tree. It's such a perfect metaphor for longevity and through trials and tribulations. So, I mean, ginkgo trees do not look like this. They are, I just took a ginkgo leaf and just made it into the tree. But it really it's obvious, right? It's very obvious. And I used epoxy clay to do the stuff. So I've placed all these items, and of course I have to say the sign is so funny. It says proceed no matter what, NMW, no matter what. So it looks like one of the signs, proceed. And so these little items sit on top of this. Every pedestal is a little higher than the next one, so it's like one tangent of a landscape, but set in a museum. In a museum. I want to take all this and set it into a museum atmosphere. Here you are with the headphones walking through the pedestals, and there are 5 different tangents to this pedestal whenever I get this crazy thing built. And each pedestal has that same set of circumstances on it, but they diminish in size. So you really get that landscaping feel. And if you look from above, the whole installation is the shape of a ginkgo. You know what, if you can remember, you know, the terracotta army? Yeah, the underground army that was dug out in China, the beautiful terracotta figures of soldiers. There's thousands of them that have been uncovered under the city. And every one of them just standing at you know, they're I can't get into the history of it too much, but somewhat like that. They are monuments to a very important time in that dynasty. And so here I go, here I go. And I can't wait I want to make them out of stainless steel. There's a material that I really would love to learn more about, but I haven't. It's difficult. I mean, I can only own so many different kinds of torches, and so on, before it becomes, you know, what would you call that? Obscene. You know, I can cut with a crosscut saw just as well as I can cut with, you know, a fancy jigsaw. I have all those other things, but, you know, how far do you want to go?
Oh, I like everything about paint. I don't know if there's any most. I love the possibility of it. I love that you can play with it. I love that it turns you into a 5-year-old. I love that you can make exquisitely beautiful things with it. I love color. My gosh, I just, you know, I mean, it's just, I love it. I love the feeling of it on my hands. I love the way it goes onto paper or wood or canvas. I love the way it somehow mysteriously, magically brings forth some incredible truth that you had no words for. It's an exquisite medium because it's so available. All you need is a bunch of little bottles from the dollar store and you're off.
Glass has a standard process. It's you gather a bubble and then you gather another bubble and you add color to it and you might make it bigger or smaller and you blow in it. And so the basic process of making glass is the same. making glass unique and original requires a lot of, we tend to dream it. You know, we'll wake up and we'll talk about what we imagined. If I'm going to make a new piece, like we recently figured out how to shift the axis in a piece, which is going from the traditional access to opening a new hole and attaching a new blowpipe and making the bubble in a different angle, which we've seen, you know, glass maestros who we are really impress us do for years. So we learned how to do that. But before we did it, there was a lot of rehearsal in your mind and making things happen. When I imagine, it involves color choices, it involves the number of bits that I'm going to have bring to me, it involves the number of pipes and punties we're going to use, and it's always preparing that it'll be floor art first, or, you know, lumps of things, or that things just don't quite turn out the way you have envisioned.
I could tell you a story. So it's a painting that's actually here, but it's a little stacked away there. It's a painting of I call a piano teacher. So strangely enough, this was painted a long time ago, maybe 40 years ago, in the first round of painting I did. And so it's essentially, there's a piano in the center, there's an open window, there's a very young girl, I would guess 12 or 13, whose back is to the viewer, and she's sitting on a stool at the piano. And then there's an old lady standing next to the piano who is not looking straight out, she's kind of looking up and away, but she is full face out. And so I had the idea when I painted that I wanted that old lady to have the spirit of my grandmother. I wasn't trying to do a portrait, but I wanted her kindness and her generosity to be in it. And so anyway, I painted the whole thing. It took however long it took, I don't remember now, it's not important, but I was painting the last, on the outside, because that old woman in the painting was the most forward thing, so it was kind of the last thing I'm painting. I painted it, and everything else had been gone just as I wanted, and I painted her, and I was doing this in oil, by the way, which I don't do much anymore, but so I stood back from the painting, a sort of self-congratulatory feeling, like now I'm going to see this. But once I got away from the painting and I looked, and I saw this very stern kind of no-nonsense look. I wouldn't call it unkind, but it was tougher than I imagined or wanted. And so I thought, oh, I didn't get it. I didn't get what I was looking for. So because it was oil, I actually went up with a knife. I scraped out all the paint in the face, and I painted it over again. And I'm painting, and I thought, okay, I can see it. It's coming. I see it. But see, I'm also close. I'm a little nearsighted, so I tend to be very close to painting sometimes. I stood back, and it was exactly the same. Well, I mean, it was pretty much exactly the same. That same tough, stern, I'm not letting you off the hook demeanor. And that, I thought, okay, that's not what I want. So I actually did it again. I took the knife, I scraped it, and I went in close, I painted. I realized the face. I was sure I had it this time. I stepped back, and it was exactly the same. The demeanor was exactly the same. And in that moment, I remember saying out loud, I was alone, but I spoke directly to the painting. I said these words, "What is wrong with you?" Because that was my feeling. It was like, there's something there that is just resisting my every wish, frustrating my forward. And see, that was strange enough. But here's the really strange part. I heard a reply. Now, I didn't hear it, I mind you, audibly hear it, but I heard very clearly in my mind, in my soul, I heard that one speak. And she said, this is how I want to be, and this is how I will be, no matter how many times you do this. So just forget it. This is how it's supposed to be. And in that moment, I realized, oh, there's a way that the painting is out of my hands. I mean, it's in my hands in the sense I'm the only one who could do it, have the skill or the capacity or whatever. And to manifest that. But once I'm in a relationship with the something in it, then it is autonomous. She, the painting in some ways. That was a very big illustration or moment, but I've in somewhat less dramatic forms, and sometimes also as dramatic as that. That's always been the case. I've always been in dialogue with the work itself. And I take that probably a little more literally sometimes than most would.
When I am going to visualize something that wants to come to life, basically, first it comes to me through visuals, right? I meditate every single day, and I'll usually start seeing a palette. Or if I'm studying something specifically that really triggers my interest, I'll be looking more into it and I'll look for visuals. So it's kind of like a mix of both. And then when I said in meditation, palette comes to me, shapes comes to me, concept comes to me. Once I decide what medium I want to use, I will usually, I will literally put my hands on the canvas and speak to it and kind of like visualize onto it what my intention is, and I'll speak to it and I'll tell it what my intention is, and then I'll let it become what it wants to come with time. So that's why I was speaking of the unpredictability, because I don't want to know what wants to be birthed. I don't want to be able to control it. I want whatever needs to come to me. And I also read a prayer like before I start painting. It's from this book by Alex Gray's Artist's Prayer. Creator of the universe, how infinite and astonishing are your worlds. Thank you for your sacred art and sustaining presence. Divine imagination, forgive my blindness. Open all my eyes, reveal the light of truth, let original beauty guide my every stroke. Universal creativity, flow through me from my heart, through my mind to my hand. Infuse my work with spirit to feed hungry souls. So when I read that, it just captivated me. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to happen. So I like to read this psalm or this poem, this prayer, before I start painting.
So it's a continuing movement of pushing away the boundaries, the rules, the ceiling that I kept hitting my head on, to understand I could do whatever I wanted as long as I could handle the consequences, which mean rejection, failure. I've had that. I used to keep a very big folder of all the rejection letters I had, because people don't understand that being an artist, if you're going to be in the gallery system like I was, you're going to have way more rejection than acceptance, way more. So I've had a lot of, the process has been, I guess, keeping my heart open, but also protected from the slings and arrows of the world, and the art world in particular.
In the next episode, we'll learn the value of teachers, mentors, and role models in the creative process. I'll see you here next time on the Island of the Arts.